then you want it to show this solid field on. So if you click this icon, you can see the art is now solid. And if we go to the database and check.
Hey, Ed, thanks a lot for joining me. Today we're going to talk about building with Bubble. Really excited to talk to you.
Yeah, hey, James, good to be here.
Cool. So you are possibly one of the most prolific Bubble developers out there. You have over 60,000 installs on your templates. Can you tell me a little bit about your background? How did you even get started building with Bubble?
Yeah, it is quite a long story. So I actually have a non-technical background. So I actually study economics and philosophy at university. And then I joined Amazon straight after university. I was kind of what people might call like a category or business manager for one of the retail business units. And then I transitioned. After a few years, I transitioned into a product management role, but that was still non-technical. So a few years ago, I wanted to start my own startup, but I did not have a technical co-founder. So I stumbled upon Bubble, and basically went ahead and just build my startup on top of Bubble, just learning Bubble along the way. So I did that for 2 years. And that business didn't really go anywhere. It just became like a small business. And then I thought to myself, I didn't quit my job to build a small business. So I decided before I kind of find my next big idea, I would basically just start working on client projects. Today, I spend most of my time helping clients to develop their apps using Bubble, and then the rest of the time I would kind of work on a few side projects, and see if they take off.
And so all of these templates that you made those in your spare time?
So the templates, interesting story. So I actually had an idea to build a component library for Bubble. So what I did was me and my team actually, when I was working for this idea, we'll build a lot of components for our component library. But that idea didn't go anywhere. So what we ended up doing was we had all these kind of components sitting in our Bubble accounts doing nothing, and so we just thought, hey, why don't we just upload them all for free to Bubble Marketplace for no reason at all. Like, we didn't know what we could do with them, so we just did that, and so that's how they came about. And to be honest, I should be uploading more, but just never got the time to do them.
That's super cool.
Upload them. Yeah.
And what was the response? What kind of use cases and what kind of things have you seen people build with the templates that you uploaded?
The most popular one is the AirBNB template. So it is a two-sided marketplace. It's actually quite a popular segment for entrepreneurs. Like, people have all sorts of ideas to build marketplaces, especially two-sided marketplaces. So we have seen people build boat rental platform using the template. We've seen people trying to build hourly accommodation bookings. We've seen people try to build a platform where you can book tennis courts, basketball courts, and things like that. So all sorts really. Oh, actually, one of the fun one that I heard was there was a guy in the States. I think he owns a bunch of land, and just forests and things like that. And he had a business of renting out those lands for people to do hunting. And so he was trying to turn the template into a booking platform for people with land to lend it to others for hunting. So that was quite a unique one.
That's incredible. Yeah, it's basically like bringing the power of open source to no code.
Yeah, and it's quite empowering. Like for a lot of those people, actually for nearly all of them, they did not have someone who are who are good enough to build a fully fledged marketplace. And Bubble really and the templates really gave them a way to do that.
So speaking of the Airbnb template, I had asked if you could give us a little demo of how someone with no coding experience at all could get started with the Airbnb template and maybe even make a change to it.
Yeah, let's do that. Yeah, we can do that. So let me just share my screen. So what we're going to do in this demo is we're trying to create a favorite list similar to what you have on Airbnb. So on Airbnb, you can save a listing into a wish list. So we're going to do something similar. We're going to do an easy version of this. So on Airbnb, you can have multiple wish lists. But for now, to keep this simple, we're going to just build one wish list under your account. So you can save listings under your account. So to do that, we're just going to use the Airbnb template. So when you're on the Bubble template marketplace, what you can do is you can just search for Airbnb, and it should be the first one that shows up. This one is mine. Of course, you can also try the other templates as well, and then it's free, so you can just kind of click purchase to get it into your account. So once you have it in your account, what you can do is you can create a new app using the template. So bear with me here, quite a few templates. So yeah, just select the right one, and then you can just give it a name, right? And so what Bubble will now do for you is basically duplicate the template so that you have an app based off of the template. I'm just going to kind of skip the launcher system. So now you can see you have a semi-complete marketplace like Airbnb. If I do a preview, just give you a sense of what we have. So you can see similar to Airbnb, you have a bunch of listings, and then you have account messaging system, trips, search bar for you to search for accommodation, etc. So what we're going to do in this demo is you can see here, there's no save button, so you can't have your own wish list. We're going to create a new wish list in this demo. So I'm just going to go ahead and go back to the editor and start creating the wish list. So the first thing I do usually is when I think of a new feature is to start thinking about the database structure. And so for the database on Bubble is really convenient. It's all integrated into your Bubble editor. And if you click a data tab, then you have access to your database. And then the data types is basically your database schema. And so you can define the columns on your database. So for our case, what we want to do is we want to enable each user to have their own wish list. So what we're going to do is we're going to identify the user table. And then we're going to create a column where we can store the saved listings. So you can click create a new field. And then so here is where we want to store the saved listing. So you can give it a name, a descriptive name. So just going to use saved listings. And then for the database, for the field type, you want to associate that with the listings themselves. So you can select the data types listing. So people are going to they're going to save more than one listings in their wish lists. So what you want to do is instead of just saving one listing, you want to make it into a list. So click here and then go ahead and create. Okay, so now the database would allow you to save listings to a user. So now we can go and do the front end work. Like Airbnb, we're going to let people to save a listing right kind of on the display of the listings. So you can see here, this is a listing. So you can kind of see it. It corresponds to one here. It was built as a reusable element. So you can see here, it's not really editable. But all you need to do is to click edit element, and then you can see the element display here. So you can see the image kind of on top, and then kind of the name and the details of the listing below. So we want to have the heart icon kind of on the top right, exactly like Airbnb. So what we're going to do is to have that heart icon. So so for icons, Bubble already has this kind of element type. So you can select either the kind of native icons, or you can install plugins like the Google Material icons here. So I usually go for Google Material icons because they look better. And so you can just click here and then kind of roughly point to the area where you want to drop the icon, and then just do it here. So the parent group is aligned to parent container type. So what it basically allows us to do is to define which side your element is going to kind of align against. So we want it in the top right corner, and so we can click here, and then you can define the size of the icon. So we're just going to do 24, 24. Ideally, we have some padding as margin between the space between the borders. So we're just going to give it some margin. So for top, probably 8. See if that's enough. Right, 8 if that's enough. Okay, that looks pretty good. So what we can do now is to turn the smiley face into the heart icon. The search doesn't work really well, so sometimes you really have to look through the whole list. So bear with me here. Let's see. Oh, here we go.
Cool.
Okay. So we're just going to give it a color of red. Say. Okay. Now we have the icon here. So now what we want to do is that when a user clicks on this icon, we want to add this listing into their user account. So how do you do that? So once you have the icon selected, you can click Start, Edit, or Edit Workflow. Here you're defining what will happen if someone clicks on this icon. So what we want to do is we want to add this into the user table that we just added for this particular user. So we go and select the data, things, make change to things. The thing to change would be the current user. So the user kind of using the platform. And then what you want to do is you want to save this listing into the field that we just created. So you want to add this listing. And so I just selected add. If you're doing other stuff, you may want to use the other option. Like if you're adding multiple listings, then you want to use add list.
So because we selected list before, the add command will automatically show up here.
Yes, exactly. So that's a great question. So if you're changing other fields, like this is a text field, then your only option is the equal sign. So you can only define what the text is. But because this is a list, you have a bunch of different options, including add. So what we're going to do is we want to add the listing into here. And if you go back to the element, you will see that the whole element for the type of content is listing. So each element consists of one listing only. That's the listing that we want. So what we're going to do is go ahead and find this element, and then you can see listing automatically pops up. And so you just need to go ahead and select that. And now you have the feature to add this listing into your wish list. Now, when you use a wish list like Airbnb, you notice that you can save and you can also remove a listing from the wish list. So we want to kind of support removing a listing from your wish list as well. So what we're going to do, because it's the same action, but the action also happens on the same icon. So what you want to do is to click this again. So now you want to duplicate this action. So you can click copy and then paste. So now you have two actions. So when this icon is clicked, there are two actions. The other actions would be, if a user has already saved this listing into their wish list, then if they click this button, if they click this icon again, you want to remove the listing. So instead of selecting add, you should select remove. So this would remove the listing. Now, you need to tell when to implement the adding or removing of the listings. So that's when you use the conditional space for your actions. So this is when a user does not have the listings in their wish list. So we want to check for that. So to do that, you just need to go for the current user and then go back to the field that we talked about. And you want to check whether they have this listing. So there are, this doesn't contain, and then you can select the listings. So what this does is basically it checks whether the current user's wish list contains the listings. So if it doesn't contain it, which means that this listing is not safe in the wish list, then the computer can go ahead and kind of add this listing into the list. And so for the removal of a listing, kind of similar logic, I'm just going to paste the condition here, but instead of doesn't contain, now it's contains, because if that wish list has this listing, click the icon again, then you should remove the listing. So you can see that here. So now that's the workflow session of the work done. We can go ahead and try it out actually. So why don't we do that?
So as it is right now, you haven't had it to change the icon yet.
That's right.
Okay.
That's right. That's a great observation. Yeah, so that's what we can do right now actually. Also, you may notice that the icon got into the middle, and that's because you can see here I have not defined the maximum width of the icon. So you may want to do that to make sure that it doesn't kind of get expanded across the horizontal axis. So you just want to make it fixed width, and that should solve the issue. Yep, so here we go. And like you said, James, we want to, show the user whether they have saved a listing into their wish list. So what we want to do is to make this icon solid when a listing is already in the wish list. So how can we do that here? So you can select the icon, and then you can select conditional. What you want to do is to let the computer know if this condition is satisfied, then you can ask it to do something. So for example, in our case, we want it to change the appearance of the icon. So instead of using the kind of empty heart, you can use the filled heart. So now we just need to define the condition, which is similar to what we had before. If the current user wish list contains the current listing, then you want it to show this solid field heart. So let me just see how we get on. So if you click this icon, right, so you can see the heart is now solid. And if we go to the database and check, so you can see This is our user. And then you can see save listings. You can see one thing is saved. So this is the unique ID of the listing. So you can see that this listing is now saved. So if we go back to the demo, and if we click it again, what this does is it will now remove this listing from the wish list. And if you go back to the database, you can see that the listing has been removed. Yeah, so finally, what we might want to do is for the users to have one single place for them to see all their saved listings. So to do that, we can create a new page. You can call it save. And then usually you can use one of your existing pages to make it easier. So I'm just going to use trips, just any one of them, and then you can delete the existing content. So I'm just going to delete all of them here and start over. So you have kind of the header and footer from the other page, but then kind of the body section, you can define your own. So I'm just going to give it a name, wish list, because this page will showcase all your saved listings. And then just give it a nice large header. Let's see if there's anything larger. Okay, this looks good enough. All right. Okay, and what we now want to do is to display a list of all the saved listings. So when you want to display a list, you want to select the container repeating group. If we drag the repeating group here, just select the right container layout. You can experiment with different layouts depending on how you want it to be. But for our use case, we're just going to select row, and then just make it expand across the page. And then here you can define the number of rows or columns. So, or you can not define them and just set a minimum width. So I'm just going to do that to make our layout more flexible. I'm going to make sure that each listing has enough width to showcase them. Now, what we want to do is to tell the web app what items to show in this list. And so what we have just seen is that we are saving a list of listings, right? So we want to select listing here, and you want to tell the web app where it can get this data. And as you just saw, each user would have their own list saved in the user database. So we're just going to go ahead and select current user, and then select the save listings, where we're saving the listings. Select here. And now you have a list of saved listings. But still, this, if you click preview, the page will be empty. That's because you have not told Bubble what you want to show. So that's data within this repeating group, but you have not told Bubble how to display the listings. So what we can do here is we can select the same reusable element from the homepage, similar to what we had in the homepage, and then we can put it here inside the repeating group. Okay, just give it some margin between the different listings. Okay, and then for the element, you just want to tell what data is it pulling from. So for repeating group, anything inside repeating group, you can select just the current cell, the data of the current cell, and then that's ready. So what we want to do now is to make sure that we have some listings saved. So I'm just going to go ahead and save few listings. So now in my wish list, I do have 4 listings. And if we go back to this page, it's too big. All right, just minimum width. Let's see. Now you can see the 4 listings that we just saved. So that's how you can create a wish list on Bubble.
That is super cool. I mean, as I've been watching you, I've just been thinking about how long it would take me to do this, writing it in code. And I was just impressed at how fast and how flexible the different capabilities were. Like, for example, when you were going through the menus, I mean, they really covered everything you could want from a database schema, and all the different kinds of values that you could want to insert.
Yeah, exactly. And you could see kind of from how I was doing it, everything was kind of logical. Like you can just see, you select current user, and then automatically you get, there's a list of all the related items that shows up. So Bubble has made it super easy for you to build stuff. And everything you can read, right? So they're just kind of words that makes sense to you, rather than the syntax that you may have to remember for coding.
What are the best ways to sort of learn how to navigate these menus? Is it just by scrolling through, or are there also can you search through Google or search the documentation?
So obviously it depends on your learning style, but for me, because the drop downs, like the menu that we just saw, they're not really long. So when I first started, I basically just scroll through them and just select the most relevant option. That was because for every apps, the menu is going to look a bit different. So what you want to do is just to play around and see what shows up, and just select the option that looks right to you.
And then the last thing that we didn't actually show is then how you would actually go about deploying this to your own domain or website. How does that work? And I'm guessing it's pretty straightforward to do.
Yeah, I mean, maybe easier to show it rather than.
Sure.
When you first set up an app on Bubble automatically assigns you a subdomain under their domain. So you can see here, that's the address of your website. So it is live, and you can share that with your team or anyone. So that's super easy. So for most people, they would want their own domain. So all you need to do is to go to settings, domain, and then put your domain. And basically what will happen is Bubble will give you a list of, I think, eight records for you to put in your registrar, whether it's GoDaddy or Cloudflare, etc. You just need to copy and paste those records into your registrar. And then what Bubble will do is it will start pointing traffic to your kind of custom domain. So you will notice that here it says version test. It means that it is the development version of your app, which is kind of for developers and for your internal users, and it's not for production, not for your real users. So what you want to do is to deploy everything to live, which is kind of Bubble for production. So on the free plan, you need to upgrade. I can just do the 2-week free trial actually, free. So once you have upgraded to a paid plan, you can go ahead and just deploy to live. Oh, you have to fix some issues. But yeah, basically, once you have fixed the issues, let's see if there are more issues. Okay, there are no more issues. Okay, just log. And voila, your website's live. So what you can do is, if you go to the live version of your website, which is the one without version test, then your website's already live. I don't have any data in my live database, so that's what I sent you.
That's super cool. And I tested out this template earlier, and the login and sign up and everything works right away.
Yeah, I mean, right out of the box, Bubble has built a few native plugins for LinkedIn, Twitter, Google, Facebook, etc. So it's really easy to integrate those. But if you want to go more advanced, you can do Auth0, or integrate directly with the login providers. So they're relatively straightforward.
Yeah, it was also really cool to see that Material UI has plugins, because I always thought that's something only for coding. Um, what are some of the what are some of the plugins that people really should know about? What are some of the best plugins that you've seen most useful?
Yeah. So for me, I always go for the Google Material icon,
Hmm.
um, the Bubble API connector. It basically allows you to connect to any API that you want. These two are my go-tos.
Cool. And then one other thing that I was thinking was, how about versioning? So as you're making all of these changes, you'd probably want the option to go back to before you started adding in the favorites feature or the wish list feature. Is that easy to do in Bubble too?
So yeah, so you can create save point on your Bubble apps.
Hmm.
Um, uh, and then you can also create branches. So, for example, if you're working with, a team of developers, then each developers or a team of developers working on the same feature should have their own branch. Um,
Hmm.
and then the undo feature is kind of quite robust on Bubble as well. So you can just keep clicking undo to undo the changes that you have done.
So you've really shown how fast it can be, to me, to prototype something. As a full stack developer who's been coding for a while, do you think I should use no code tools to test out my ideas?
Um, it, so to be honest, it really depends on kind of your use case and
Hmm.
what your priorities are. For Bubble, when you're an experienced bubbler, for most MVPs, you should be able to get it done within, 1 or 2 weeks. So it really depends on, if you were to develop this plugin using kind of, if you just do coding, how long is it going to take you? And then
Yeah.
for Bubble, how long is that going to take you? Because as most founders know, like the first version of your MVP is not going to last long. You don't need to scale that. You just need to test your hypothesis. So I think the decision framework should be pretty simple. It would be whatever that can get you to that MVP the fastest, and that should be your approach. That would be how I decide personally.
Have you seen a lot of examples of startups that went really well from basically creating an MVP using Bubble?
Well, yeah, I mean, a couple of my clients they have raised VC fundings um, off back of the Bubble apps that I built them. One of them raised I think €1 million. The other raised 6 figures funding, and then a few clients got to really 7 figures revenue within the first year of their startup. So it really goes to show,
Yeah.
you can build something kind of production ready, and on Bubble. Obviously, it all depends on how good your idea, how good your execution is. But yeah, Bubble can get you there fast.
At what point would you not want to use Bubble, or is there a point at which you would then want to maybe build from code from scratch?
Yeah, so 100%. So there are a few scenarios where you would want to switch back to kind of traditional coding. So
Hmm.
I would say at least 3 scenarios. So the first one would be so the versioning that you mentioned, or the
Hmm.
on Bubble, it's still not as sophisticated as
Right.
traditional coding, obviously.
Right.
And so my experience is I used to have a team of 6 developers, and I think as soon as we got to our fourth developer, collaboration became difficult.
Mm.
Um, and it was just on Bubble to look up, a piece of code or a piece of workflow. You have to do everything visually, which is much more time consuming compared to just looking at text, like the code. Um, so I would say when you scale, if you're building something that requires a massive team, then it just becomes very difficult for you to coordinate your team. And that could be one reason why you want to move off Bubble. The other one would just be you're developing something super advanced that you just can't build on Bubble. So for example, Bubble's integrated database is a relational one, right? So if you're doing something, your primary database is something other than relational database, then maybe Bubble is not for you. And then finally, I think if you're targeting kind of enterprise and you have really strict kind of security, and they require really strict security policies like HIPAA and things like that, then building on Bubble kind of limits you to what Bubble can offer you in terms of the security features, and sometimes they're not sufficient for your enterprise clients. And so you may need to move out of Bubble in order to be compliant to those requirements. So that could be another reason why you want to move off Bubble.
Yeah, got it. That makes sense. How does it look like these days for someone who wants to be like a freelancer or an independent contractor? Let's say they decide they want to go with learning Bubble or another no-code tool. How does that journey look like?
That journey.
Yeah.
It is a really tough one, to be quite honest with you. I have tried to help a dozen of developers to start their freelancing journey. It can be difficult to find clients, even if you have a robust portfolio. So I would definitely suggest having some experience first in Bubble instead of trying to learn Bubble in a few months and then right away try to get clients, just because you won't be able to deliver quality Bubble apps to your clients. So just maybe build for your own side project first. Try a few ideas and then use those in your portfolio, right? That you can showcase to your clients and also get some experience along the way. And then you want to find clients, and that's the hardest part for most freelancers, especially when they first start out. So for that, I would just suggest them to reach out to the existing network. That's actually the easiest because they know you. And if you worked for them before or you worked with them before, they know how reliable or trustworthy you are, then it's a much easier sell compared to reaching out to a stranger online who has no idea who you are and whether they should trust you. And usually what happens, and in my case really, is that once you have your first few clients, and if they're happy with your work, then they'll just start referring you to people that they know. And that's really how I got majority of my clients, just through referrals. People referring you, and that's where you want to be honest. You want people to really like your work so much so that they are referring you to their friends or kind of people they meet.
Are these clients looking for Bubble developers, or are they just looking to get the product made?
So my client base is kind of unique. So I usually work with super experienced entrepreneurs who had massive exits before, or they are a serial entrepreneur, or they have raised some sort of VC fundings. So for them, the default was actually like traditional programming. That's what they're more familiar with. And they stumble upon Bubble for whatever reason. And usually because of the timeline that Bubble is able to offer them, they started considering Bubble, and eventually a lot of them chose to switch over just because, compared to being able to launch an MVP within a month, versus maybe 6 months or 3 months that they would have to wait with other developers. So it was a no-brainer for them, and they know that for the first version of the MVP, they may get it wrong, or they may have to pivot a number of times before they find product market fit. So for them, they're not thinking, okay, what is the ideal tech stack for me in 3 years? They're just thinking, how do I get this MVP out of the door to try to go for my product market fit, and then I can think of scaling when I reach that phase.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense to me, because I feel like most app development frameworks out there, they're more focused on adding a lot of things and a lot of functionality, and not necessarily focused on helping you to build your prototype as fast as possible. Final question I would have for you would be, what do you think that the future of software development is going to be like, maybe 5 or 10 years from now?
Oh, that's a really tough one. I think AI is going to play a much bigger role. I mean, for a lot of my kind of custom code work, I'm relying on AI to, to fix my bugs, to write the boilerplate code for me, and even for Bubble, right? So you can see a lot of the standard stuff that we are building right now, because they share so much commonalities with other apps as well, and so that's something that AI will be really good at. So you should be able to tell, ask the AI, generate a few pages of a two-sided marketplace for me, and then AI would, to generate those on Bubble, and then you can kind of customize it to your unique use cases. So I think big changes are coming. Not necessarily for everyone would be good news, but yeah, we just have to wait and see.
Awesome, man. Thank you so much for your time. The demo was super impressive, and I'm gonna start building some of my ideas probably in Bubble soon.
Sounds good.